Let's jump into the global perspective on cannabis laws. The global landscape of cannabis laws is undergoing a significant transformation. While cannabis remains illegal in a lot of countries, numerous regions have moved toward reform, embracing a spectrum of policies that range from medical cannabis legalization to full recreational use. In North America, Canada has legalized recreational cannabis, while the United States has been seeing a growing number of states legalizing cannabis for various purposes. In Europe, countries like Germany and the Netherlands have established medical cannabis programs. South America, notably Uruguay, has fully legalized recreational cannabis. Additionally, international treaties like the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs have really long influenced global drug control efforts, making the shift in cannabis laws a topic of international significance and discussion. As attitudes towards cannabis continue to evolve, the global landscape of cannabis laws reflects a dynamic interplay of changing policies and social equity considerations, and this growing recognition of the plant's potential medical and economic benefits. So in this lesson, we're going to discuss the historical context, cannabis legalization, medical cannabis, decriminalization, illegality and prohibition, industrial hemp, international treaties, regulatory models, public opinion, challenges and controversies, an impact on the criminal justice system, economic impact, global trade and exploration, and some of the lessons learned and the future trends. The historical use of cannabis in different cultures is really rich and diverse. In ancient China, cannabis was used for medicinal and ritual purposes. The plant's fibers were used for textiles, and its medicinal properties were recorded in the ancient texts. Ancient India, there's a long history of cannabis use in India, where it was used for medicinal and spiritual purposes, and it played a significant role in the religious practices of some sects, such as the sadhus. Cannabis has been used for centuries in the Middle East and North Africa for medicinal and recreational purposes. It was mentioned in historical texts such as 1001 Nights. And the early prohibitions of cannabis can be traced back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Western countries began imposing restrictions due to concerns about its psychoactive effects, which was often driven by racial and political factors. Then the international control of cannabis began with the Single Convention of Narcotic Drugs in 1961, which classified cannabis as a Schedule I substance. And then subsequent treaties, like the 1971 Convention on Psychotropic Substances, reinforced that strict control of cannabis globally. And then international treaties have influenced and constrained cannabis policies in a lot of countries. They've often led to the criminalization and the strict regulation of cannabis to comply with international obligations. In recent years, though, there's been this shift in global perspectives on cannabis laws, with many countries legalizing or decriminalizing it for medical and recreational use. This shift has challenged the historical prohibitions and international treaties related to cannabis. Understanding the historical use of cannabis in various cultures and early prohibitions is crucial for grasping the complexity of cannabis laws and the evolving global perspectives on the plant. So just a quick overview of some of the countries and regions that have legalized cannabis. Canada legalized recreational cannabis in 2018, and that was the second country in the world to do that. Medical cannabis had been legal for years prior to that. Uruguay was the first country to fully legalize cannabis for recreational use in 2013. The government controls its production and distribution, though. In the United States, cannabis laws vary by state, obviously, and as of 2021, there were several states that had legalized recreational cannabis, while there had been more that had legalized medical cannabis, and federal law still categorizes cannabis as a controlled substance. Mexico passed a law legalizing recreational cannabis in 2021, with regulations being developed. Medical cannabis was already legal in the country. Colombia legalized medical cannabis in 2015 and since has become a major producer of medical cannabis products. Israel has a very robust medical cannabis program and is known for its cannabis research and innovation. The Netherlands have been known for its liberal approach to cannabis, with the sale of small quantities tolerated in licensed coffee shops. Portugal decriminalized the possession of all drugs, including cannabis, for personal use in 2001, and it has a progressive stance on drug policy. Spain has a complex approach to cannabis laws, with private cannabis clubs operating in some regions and personal use decriminalized. Germany legalized medical cannabis in 2017 and has a growing cannabis program. Australia has legalized medical cannabis with regulations varying by state. Some regions have also decriminalized small-scale possession for personal use. And South Africa's highest court ruled in 2018 that personal cannabis use and cultivation for private use are legal. And just note here that the cannabis laws continue to evolve in many regions, and it's essential to stay up to date with the latest legal developments in each country or region. The cannabis legalization movement has seen several key milestones and movements over the years, and that contributed to a shift in public opinion and changed the landscape of cannabis laws. Some of the significant milestones in the cannabis legalization movement included in the 1930s and 1960s early prohibitions. So the U.S. government passed the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937, effectively criminalizing the possession and sale of cannabis, and these prohibitions spread to many other countries. In the 70s and 80s, we had the war on drugs in the United States, and that led to stricter drug laws and the classification of cannabis as a Schedule I controlled substance. In 1996, California's Proposition 215 became the first U.S. state law to legalize medical cannabis through that Proposition 215. And that marked a turning point in the medical cannabis movement. In 2012, Colorado and Washington became the first U.S. states to legalize recreational cannabis for adults, and that led the way for the other states. In 2013, Uruguay became the first country to fully legalize and regulate recreational cannabis at the national level. In 2018, Canada was the second country to legalize recreational cannabis, and they implemented a very comprehensive regulatory framework. In 2020, the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs voted to remove cannabis from the Schedule IV of the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, acknowledging its medicinal value. In 2021, Mexico passed legalization legislation for recreational cannabis, and that became one of the largest countries to do that. Numerous states have continued to legalize both medicinal and recreational cannabis through ballot initiatives and legislation action. A lot of countries around the world have shifted towards more lenient cannabis policies, whether through legalization or decriminalization or medical access. And these milestones just represent a portion of the progress that's made by the cannabis legalization movement. The changing landscape just kind of reflects these evolving societal attitudes and scientific research, and just a growing recognition of the benefits of cannabis for both the medicinal and recreational use. And there's growing acceptance of medical cannabis, and that reflects a significant shift in those societal attitudes and the government policies. There's been scientific validation. Medical cannabis has gained acceptance as a legitimate medical treatment due to increasing scientific evidence that supports the efficacy in managing various health conditions. We have patients and advocacy groups that have played a vital role in raising awareness about the therapeutic potentials of cannabis and also pushing for access to medical cannabis treatments. A lot of countries and states have legalized medical cannabis, and that established a comprehensive regulatory framework to ensure safe access and quality control. There's been a growing acceptance that has led to increased research into the cannabinoids and the endocannabinoid system and their potential applications in treating conditions like chronic pain and epilepsy, cancer, and neurological disorders. There's been an increasing number of healthcare professionals that are acknowledging the therapeutic potential of medical cannabis and are more open to recommending it as a treatment option. Patients also now have access to a variety of medical cannabis products, including oils, tinctures, capsules, and so many different more that are just tailored to their specific conditions and preferences. Medical cannabis is increasingly seen as a valuable tool in managing chronic pain conditions, and that reduces the reliance on opioid medications. And research is exploring the potential of medical cannabis in treating mental health disorders like anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Medical cannabis, particularly the high CBD strains, has shown promise in reducing seizures in children with epilepsy, leading to more widespread acceptance in the medical community. And the acceptance of the medical cannabis continues to evolve with ongoing research, policy change, and patient success stories that shape the landscape of medicinal cannabis use. So overall, the growing acceptance of medical cannabis is going to represent a significant advancement in healthcare options and has the potential to provide relief and improve quality of life for patients with these various medical conditions. Decriminalization has had several notable impacts on cannabis laws and the broader societal landscape. So, decriminalization typically replaced criminal penalties like arrests and incarcerations, and it replaced it with civil penalties like fines, citations, for the low-level cannabis possession. And that means that individuals caught with small amounts of cannabis are less likely to face severe legal consequences. And decriminalization often led to a shift in law enforcement priorities. Police and courts can focus on more serious crimes, and that leads to potential improvements in the criminal justice system's efficacy and efficiency. And in regions where decriminalization has occurred, there is usually a noticeable decrease in cannabis-related arrests and convictions. And that has a very significant impact on reducing the burden on the criminal justice system. Decriminalization also helps address racial disparities in cannabis-related arrests and convictions. In many cases, individuals from marginalized communities have been disproportionately affected by cannabis enforcement, and decriminalization can help mitigate these disparities. And the resources that were previously allocated to enforcing cannabis possession laws can now be directed towards more constructive purposes, like addressing other public safety concerns or drug education and treatment programs. And also, decriminalization often shifts the focus from criminal punishment to a public health approach. People caught with cannabis can receive referrals to drug education or treatment programs rather than facing the legal penalties. And it also upholds civil liberties by reducing the impact of criminal records related to cannabis possession. And this can enhance individuals' opportunities for employment and housing and education. And also, decriminalization reduces the perception of unfair or excessive use of law enforcement resources. It improves the relationship between the police and the communities that they serve. And the legal framework around cannabis can become simpler and more consistent as decriminalization eliminates some of the complexities and disparities associated with the criminal cannabis laws. And decriminalization can be a stepping stone towards full cannabis legalization as it shifts public opinion and demonstrates the potential benefits of a less punitive approach to cannabis. It's important to note that decriminalization is distinct from legalization. And while decriminalization does remove criminal penalties for low-level possession, it doesn't really provide for legal cannabis sales or cultivation. Legalization typically entails a more comprehensive framework that allows for regulated production, distribution, and use of cannabis. And the impacts of decriminalization can vary from one jurisdiction to another, and the extent of decriminalization can also vary. Additionally, the attitudes and laws related to cannabis are subject to change over time, with some regions progressing from decriminalization to full legalization. And the legal landscape can change, and penalties can vary based on factors such as the quantity of cannabis involved, the intent, any previous offenses. But there are some countries that have some very strict anti-cannabis policies. Singapore has one of the strictest anti-cannabis policies in the world. Possession of even small amounts of cannabis can result in severe penalties, including imprisonment, canning, or even the death penalty for larger quantities. Malaysia also has strict anti-cannabis laws. Possession, sale, or trafficking of cannabis can result in lengthy prison sentences, and drug offenses are often taken very seriously. Indonesia has strict anti-drug policies, and cannabis possession or trafficking can lead to heavy fines, imprisonment, or even the death penalty in some cases. Saudi Arabia has a very strict stance on cannabis and all illegal drugs. Possession or use of cannabis can lead to severe legal consequences, including imprisonment and fines. The United Arab Emirates, they have a strict anti-cannabis laws. Possession, use, trafficking, all can result in severe penalties, including imprisonment and fines. Japan has strict anti-cannabis laws. Possession of even small amounts can lead to significant fines and imprisonment. South Korea has strict laws regarding cannabis. Possession or use can result in imprisonment, fines, and potential legal consequences. The Philippines have a harsh stance on drug offenses, and cannabis-related offenses can lead to imprisonment and other legal penalties. Egypt has strict anti-drug policies. Possession or trafficking can result in imprisonment and fines. And Russia has strict anti-drug policies, and cannabis possession is illegal, and the penalties can include fines and imprisonment. In the United States, industrial hemp cultivation has experienced a significant shift in its legal status in recent years. With the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill, industrial hemp was removed from the list of controlled substances, effectively legalizing its cultivation across the country. This legal change has spurred a growing interest in hemp farming for its versatile applications, including the production of textiles, paper, building materials, biofuels, and numerous hemp-derived products. The regulated cultivation of industrial hemp is overseen by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or the USDA, and it's opened up for new economic opportunities for farmers, while also contributing to the resurgence of a once prominent American agricultural crop. Hemp is renowned for its remarkable versatility and wide-ranging applications across numerous industries. In textiles, the hemp fibers are used to create durable, eco-friendly fabrics that are not only strong, but they're also highly breathable and naturally resistant to mold and UV rays. And in construction, hemp-based materials like hempcrete offer sustainable alternatives to traditional building materials, providing excellent insulation and reducing carbon emissions. The automotive sector has seen the use of hemp composites for lightweight and durable parts, contributing to fuel efficiency. And furthermore, hemp seeds and oils are utilized in the food and dietary supplement industries. And these are packed with essential nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids and proteins. So with the applications in paper, biofuels, bioplastics, and even personal care products, hemp stands out as an environmentally friendly, multifaceted resource that's poised to drive innovation across a multitude of industries. International agreements that were related to cannabis primarily revolve around the drug control treaties, notably the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, the 1971 Convention on Psychotropic Substances, and the 1988 United Nations Convention against illicit trafficking in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. And these agreements collectively categorize cannabis as a controlled substance, subjecting it to strict international controls. And the 1961 Single Convention in particular classifies cannabis in Schedule 1 acknowledging its medical value but emphasizing strict regulatory measures to prevent misuse. And these treaties, while they set the framework for the global drug control, they also spark debate because they restrict the autonomy of individual nations to reform their domestic cannabis laws. And that results in ongoing discussions about potential reforms and amendments in response to evolving attitudes and research on the plant. The United Nations plays a central role in the international drug control efforts, with that 1961 Single Convention on Narcotics Drugs being the cornerstone of that framework. And this treaty, also known as the Single Convention, established a global regulatory framework for controlled substances, including cannabis. And the Single Convention classified cannabis as a Schedule 1, and that recognized its medical potential value, but subjected it to those strict controls. And the United Nations, through its various drug control agencies and bodies, encourages the member states to adopt and enforce policies in line with these international agreements. And so, while the Single Convention provided that foundation for the global drug control, it also sparks discussion and debate about the need for reform and more flexible approaches in light of those evolving scientific and medical and societal perspectives on cannabis and the other controlled substances. So legal cannabis is regulated under various models across different regions, with key regulatory approaches including government monopolies and private industry involvement and even hybrid systems. And government monopolies involve state control of cannabis production and distribution, commonly seen in countries like Canada. The private industry involvement allows for the businesses to participate in the cannabis market under government oversight, as seen in various states in the U.S. with the legalized cannabis. Hybrid systems combine elements of both, often involving government-controlled wholesale and private retail sales, like in some European countries. And the choice of regulation model impacts factors like product availability and pricing and market competition. And it also reflects each region's specific goals and priorities in managing the cannabis market. And survey data has consistently shown a notable shift in public attitudes towards cannabis, with growing acceptance and support for legalization. As more individuals perceive cannabis as a relatively low-risk substance, they're more open to its use for medical and recreational purposes. Public opinion has played a crucial role in influencing policy change, leading to the legalization and decriminalization of cannabis in various regions. And policymakers often respond to this evolving public sentiment as they recognize the potential benefits of cannabis legislation in generating tax revenue and reducing the burden of the criminal justice system and addressing social equity concerns. And as cannabis becomes more destigmatized and the public support rises, it just fuels this ongoing policy discussion and the reforms that are aimed at aligning legislation with the changing attitudes and needs of the community. And countries with evolving cannabis laws face several challenges, including establishing effective regulatory frameworks and ensuring public safety and addressing social equity concerns. So, developing regulations that balance access with responsible use and product safety can really be complex. Public safety concerns involve issues like impaired driving and youth access to cannabis. Also, achieving social equity in this industry can be challenging, as historically marginalized communities may have limited access to opportunities within the legal cannabis market. Also, navigating the international drug control treaties while pursuing cannabis reforms can be a legal and diplomatic challenge, because the countries are seeking to align their policies with the attitudes of their countries and the potential benefits of cannabis reform. So the controversies that are related to cannabis reform often revolve around social equity, taxation, and youth access. And social equity concerns focus on rectifying those historical injustices of the cannabis prohibition and ensuring that communities that are disproportionately impacted by the drug laws have fair access to the legal cannabis industry. Taxation debates involve striking this balance between generating revenue and preventing the illicit market resurgent by keeping the prices competitive. And then youth access remains a contentious issue, with concerns about safeguarding minors and preventing early cannabis use. And managing these controversies effectively is essential for the successful and responsible implementation of cannabis reform. And cannabis law changes, particularly legislation and decriminalization, have had a very significant impact on the criminal justice system. In the legalized regions, arrests related to cannabis have significantly decreased, and that leads to reduced caseloads for law enforcement in courts and prisons. But criminal penalties for cannabis possession have been lessened, and in some cases, individuals with prior cannabis convictions have had their records expunged or revised. And these changes have helped to alleviate the overcrowded prisons, reduce the burden on the criminal justice system, and free up some of those resources that can be directed towards addressing the more serious crimes and promoting that social justice. So there are some economic benefits of legal cannabis, and they've been realized in various regions with the cannabis reform. Legal cannabis generates significant tax revenue for government. The sales and the excise tax on the cannabis products contribute to the public coffers, funding vital services like education, healthcare, infrastructure, things like that. And this industry creates jobs across many different areas. The supply chain, from cultivation, production to retail, distribution, ancillary services like tax preparation services, legal services, things like that. And this spurs economic growth and reduces unemployment. And legal cannabis presents opportunities for entrepreneurs and investors, and that stimulates economic activity and innovation. And the ancillary businesses like technology and marketing firms have also flourished. And then areas where legal cannabis is, they often experience increased tourism, and that contributes to the local economy through accommodation and restaurants and other tourism-related services. And some reports suggest that property values in areas with legal cannabis have increased, so it benefits property owners and municipalities through higher tax revenue. Also, legal cannabis has led to an increased demand for agricultural land and industrial real estate, potentially revitalizing the economy in those struggling regions. And then legalization helps to curb the illicit cannabis market, and it redirects those funds to the legal economy, and it enhances the consumer safety by ensuring product quality and regulation. So legalization is going to foster cannabis research and product development, and it just contributes to advances in agriculture and biotechnology and pharmaceuticals in general. And some of the regions explore cannabis export opportunities and potentially tap into international markets and boost economic growth. And so legalization can lead to reduced law enforcement and criminal justice costs that are related to those cannabis offenses, and that frees up resources for other public safety priorities. The economic benefits of legal cannabis can be substantial and multifaceted, contributing to increased government revenue, job creation, and business growth, while simultaneously reducing the burden on the criminal justice system. But these advantages may also be accompanied by regulatory challenges and the need for careful oversight to ensure the responsible and equitable development of the cannabis industry. International cannabis trade, although it's still in its early stages, is a growing and complex landscape. As more countries legalize cannabis for various purposes, including medicinal and recreational use, international trade has emerged as a significant opportunity. The trade primarily involves the export and import of cannabis products like medical cannabis, cannabis extracts, and the other hemp-based products. So Canada and the Netherlands have been the prominent exporters, while various European countries like Germany have become key importers. So the international cannabis trade is subject to complex regulations, including compliance with the international treaties, phytosanitary standards, and quality control measures. And as the global cannabis market continues to expand, international trade is likely to play an increasingly pivotal role in the industry's growth and development. So, in the past, the world has kind of waxed and waned on whether or not to legalize cannabis, but new research has led to new policies throughout the world. And some places are still strict on policy, and others are leading the change out there in the world. So these changes are bringing about some benefits for those countries in the form of criminal justice reform, tax revenue, job creation, and global trade. And this data-driven cannabis policy decisions are crucial for a couple of reasons. First, they're going to provide a solid foundation for shaping effective and evidence-based regulations. And that means that the policies are more likely to achieve their intended goals, whether it's reducing the illicit market or promoting public health or generating tax revenue. And second, the data-driven decisions allow policymakers to adapt to evolving trends and challenges, ensuring that the regulations remain relevant and effective. And then third, these decisions help build public trust because citizens see that the policy choices are based on objective information rather than ideology or anecdotal evidence. And then lastly, the data-driven cannabis policies inform the public education efforts, helping to communicate accurate information about cannabis use and its potential risks and benefits. In this rapidly changing field like cannabis regulation, data-driven decisions are going to be an essential tool for ensuring that policies are both responsive and responsible. And these data-driven cannabis policy decisions are crucial for a couple of reasons. They're going to provide solid foundation for shaping effective and evidence-based regulations. And that means that the policies are more likely to achieve their intended goals, whether it's reducing illicit markets, promoting public health, generating tax revenue, and so on. And then the data-driven decisions are going to allow the policymakers to adapt to the evolving trends and challenges. And that's going to make sure that the regulations remain relevant and effective. And then these decisions help build the public trust. And then the data-driven cannabis policies inform public education. So staying informed and engaging in the discussion on cannabis laws and the reformation of the laws is vital as these policies are rapidly evolving. Being well informed is going to empower people to make informed decisions about cannabis use and business opportunities and social and legal issues. And active participation in the dialogue can help shape future policies that are equitable and evidence-based and responsive to the diverse needs of the community. In a field with both promise and complexity, staying engaged ensures that the benefits of cannabis reform are maximized, while the potential risks and challenges are proactively addressed, ultimately fostering a more responsible and equitable cannabis landscape. So I just want to thank you for staying tuned for this lesson. If you have any questions or comments, please place them in the chat box below this lesson. If you need to contact me for any reason, my phone number and email address are listed on this slide.